Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack complex topics fast.
And today we're getting into something absolutely critical for any organization: business continuity planning and disaster recovery planning, BCP and DRP.
Right. Basically, how businesses plan for the worst for those unexpected hits. You want to make sure your business stays standing.
Exactly. We've gone through a pretty detailed lecture on this, and our mission today is, well, to boil it down, how do organizations actually prepare, minimize disruption, keep things running?
And we'll use examples to make it stick, right? Show what this looks like in practice.
Absolutely. It's all about resilience, and examples really help show that.
Okay, let's jump right in then. The lecture kicks off with the first step for BCP, an organizational review. What does that actually involve?
It's essentially taking stock of the whole organization, but through a crisis lens. You need to map out who does what.
So like identifying the key departments.
Yes, and the key stakeholders. You've got your operational departments, the ones doing the core work, delivering the service or product. Then the critical support teams think IT, facilities, security, both cyber and physical.
Got it. And leadership too, I assume.
Definitely. Senior execs are crucial for decision-making. Identifying all these players is step one.
Why is that identification so critical, though? It sounds a bit like groundwork. Necessary, but maybe not the most exciting part.
But it's foundational, really. Two big reasons. First, it tells you who has to be on your BCP team. You need people from all those areas we just mentioned.
Okay, that makes sense. Builds the team.
And second, it gives you the context for the whole plan. You can't plan effectively if you don't know what's vital and who runs it, right?
Right. You need the map before you can plan the journey. So about that team, the lecture really stresses making it diverse. It says it's a major pitfall if, like, IT just goes off and does it alone.
Oh, absolutely. That's a classic mistake.
Yeah.
If IT or maybe the security team tries to build the BCP in a vacuum, you run into serious problems.
And like what kind of problems?
Well, two main things. One, the plan might lack crucial operational knowledge. IT knows servers, sure, but do they know the ins and outs of, say, the warehouse logistics or customer service workflows?
Well,
Probably not in detail.
I see. So the plan might be technically okay, but operationally useless.
Exactly. And the flip side is the operational folks are kept out of the loop. They don't understand the plan, they haven't bought into it, and they won't know what to do when something actually happens.
Okay, so siloed planning is a definite no-go. Who should be on this PCP dream team then?
You need a pretty broad mix. Definitely reps from those core service departments, the ones actually doing the business.
Makes sense.
Then key business units identified in that review. IT experts, absolutely. Cybersecurity folks, physical security and facilities management, they handle the buildings, power, access.
Right. What else?
Legal is vital compliance contracts.
Yeah.
HR for employee issues and comms. Public relations for managing the external message.
Okay, so internal and external comms covered.
And crucially, senior management. You need their authority, their strategic view, and honestly, their budget approval.
That's quite a lineup. It really drives home that BCP isn't just a tech thing, it's a whole business challenge.
Totally. The lecture had a good example, didn't it? The retail company.
Yeah, if their BCP team was only IT, they might plan for the website recovery perfectly fine after, say, a cyber attack.
Right. Websites back up. Great.
But what about a simple power outage hitting their physical stores? IT alone probably didn't think about how cash registers work offline or how to tell customers the store is closed.
Exactly. That needs input from sales, from operations, from PR. It shows why you need that cross-functional team to cover all the bases.
Okay, so you've got your diverse team assembled. They've done the organizational review. What's the next big piece? The lecture mentioned the business impact analysis, the BIA.
Yes, the BIA. And this is really the heart of BCP. It's where you dig into identifying your most critical processes and figuring out what would happen if they got disrupted.
So understanding the potential pain points.
Precisely. What can you absolutely not afford to lose, even for a short time? And what are the consequences, the impact, if it does go down?
The lecture talked about two types of impact assessment, quantitative and qualitative. Can you break those down?
Sure. Quantitative is all about the numbers, the dollars and cents.
Okay, measurable stuff.
Exactly. So a financial firm might calculate the revenue lost for every hour their trading system is down. That's quantitative. A manufacturer might look at lost production value.
Got it. and qualitative.
That covers the impacts that aren't easily measured in money, but are still critical. Things like damage to reputation, loss of customer confidence, maybe regulatory penalties, or even employee morale.
Right, like the healthcare provider example, if patient data gets
The
compromised.
financial cost might be significant, sure,
Okay.
but the damage to patient trust, that could be devastating long term. That's a qualitative impact.
So you need to assess both the hard costs and the softer reputational ones.
Yeah.
How does this BIA help prioritize things then? You've got all this impact data.
You use it to create a ranked list of your critical business functions. What absolutely needs to come back online first, second, third. And this priority list, it's unique to each organization.
Depends on their mission, right?
Exactly. A hospital prioritizes patient care systems. An e-commerce site prioritizes taking orders and shipping. The lecture then introduces some key metrics to help quantify these priorities. First up is asset value, or AV.
Assigning a dollar value to things.
Yeah, essentially, what's this server worth? What's this software license worth? Even intellectual property can have an AV assigned to it. It helps understand what's financially at stake.
Okay, AV. What other metrics help with timing?
Right. Time is crucial here. We have maximum tolerable downtime, or MTD, sometimes called MTO, maximum tolerable outage.
So how long can something be broken before it's really bad?
That's the idea. What's the absolute maximum time a critical function can be offline before the consequences become unacceptable? For an e-commerce site during the holidays, the MTD might be like a couple of hours, maybe less.
Okay. And related to that is RTO.
Yes, recovery time objective. This is your target time to get that function back up and running after a disruption.
So the goal you're shooting for.
And critically, your RTO must be less than your MTD. If your MTD is 8 hours, you can't have an RTO of 10 hours. You need to recover before you hit that maximum tolerable limit.
Makes sense. You need buffer time. Maybe an RTO of 4 hours for that 8-hour MTD system.
Exactly. Give yourself some breathing room. Then there's data loss.
Ah, the RPO. Recovery point objective.
Right. This focuses on data. How much data loss is acceptable? It's measured in time. How far back do you need to go to get good data?
So if my RPO is 1 hour.
It means you need backups that are, at most, 1 hour old. In the worst case, you'd lose up to an hour of data entered or changed just before the disaster hit.
Okay, so for something like online banking transactions, you'd want a very, very low RPO, maybe minutes or seconds.
Precisely. Whereas for less critical data, maybe a daily backup, so an RPO of 24 hours, might be acceptable.
These objectives, MTD, RTO, RPO, they really clarify the recovery targets. Once you have those and you know your critical functions, the lecture says you identify the risks.
Yes, what could actually cause these disruptions? The lecture groups them into two main buckets, natural and person-made.
Natural seems straightforward: weather, earthquakes.
Right. Storms, floods, fires, earthquakes, even pandemics fall under natural risks.
And person-made.
It's a broad category.
Oh.
Cyber attacks, obviously. Data breaches, terrorism, vandalism, simple accidents, power outages, equipment failure, even just human error causing a problem.
It's a worrying list when you lay it all out, and the likelihood of these varies a lot, right? Depending on where you are, what you do.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Which leads to the next step,
Mm.
likelihood assessment. How probable is each of these risks for your organization?
How do you figure that out? Guesswork.
Well, sometimes it's informed guesswork, but often you can use data. For earthquakes, you can look at USGS maps, like the lecture mentioned.
Right.
For weather, historical data. For cyber attacks, threat intelligence reports.
Okay, so based on location, industry, history.
Exactly. A company in Florida worries more about hurricanes than one in, say, Colorado. A financial firm is probably more focused on cyber threats than a construction company.
Right. So you know the risks, you know how likely they are. Then you analyze the impact if they do happen. The lecture brought in more metrics here, didn't it? EF, SLE, ALE.
Yes, getting quantitative again to help prioritize. First is the exposure factor, or EF.
Exposure factor. What is
It's
that?
the percentage of an asset's value you expect to lose if a specific risk occurs.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's say a flood hits your data center. If that flood is expected to completely destroy the servers on the floor, the EF for those servers due to flood damage would be 100%.
Got it. Percentage of loss, then SLE.
Single loss expectancy. This is the actual dollar amount you expect to lose each time that specific risk happens. You calculate it. Asset value times exposure factor.
So AV times EF. If a server's AV is $10,000 and the EF from a power surge is 50%.
Then the SLE for that server from a power surge is $5,000. That's the expected cost each time it happens.
Okay. And the last one, ALE.
Annualized loss expectancy. This looks at the yearly cost. It's the SLE multiplied by how many times you expect that risk to happen per year, the annualized rate of occurrence, or ARO.
SLE times ARO. So if that $5,000 SLE power surge happens, say, twice a year on average.
Your ALE for that specific risk on that server is $10,000 per year.
I see. So these metrics, SLE and ALE, help you put a price tag on risks, which helps decide where to spend money on mitigation, right? Protect against the stuff with the highest ALE first.
Exactly. It provides a financial basis for prioritizing your continuity efforts. You focus on the risks that could cost you the most over time.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, after all this analysis, we get to the actual planning. Continuity planning and disaster recovery planning. The lecture made a point of distinguishing them.
Yes, it's a key distinction. Business continuity planning, BCP, is about maintaining essential functions during the disruption. Maybe at a lower level, but keeping things going somehow.
Keeping the lights on, maybe dimmer but still on.
Precisely. Disaster recovery planning, DRP, is about how you get back to normal operations after the disruption. It's the recovery phase plan.
So BCP is the immediate response, DRP is the path back to full strength.
You got it. DRP really kicks in when the disruption is significant enough that IT, for example, can't support those critical processes anymore from the primary site.
And the lecture stressed having well-trained people for DRP.
Hugely important. A disaster is chaos. A good DRP brings order. It tells people exactly what their role is, what they need to do step by step. This minimizes confusion, bad decisions made under pressure.
So training and testing the DRP is critical. People need to know their parts.
Absolutely. A plan on a shelf is useless. People need to understand it and have practiced it.
Okay. Now, shifting slightly to the tech side, the lecture covered ways to make systems themselves more robust. Resilience, high availability, fault tolerance.
Right? These are technical controls designed to prevent downtime in the first place, or at least minimize it. A big goal here is eliminating single points of failure, SPOFs.
So SPOFs, any one thing that can break the whole system.
Exactly. Like that website relying on just one database server. If that server fails, the whole site is down. That's a SPOF. These concepts aim to avoid that.
So how do resilience, high availability, and fault tolerance differ? They sound related.
They are, but with nuances. System resilience is broadly the ability to keep providing acceptable service despite problems, or to bounce back quickly, like a network routing traffic around a failed link.
Okay. Adapting or recovering.
Fault tolerance is more specific. It's the ability to continue operating without interruption even when a component fails. Think RAID and servers. One disk fails, the system keeps running using the others. It tolerates the fault.
So zero interruption is the goal of fault tolerance. What about high availability?
High availability, or HA, focuses on minimizing downtime through redundancy and quick recovery. It might not be truly zero interruption like fault tolerance, but it's very close. Using things like load balancers distributing traffic across multiple web servers is HA. If one server fails, the others pick up the load almost instantly. Failover clusters are another example.
So fault tolerance continues seamlessly. High availability recovers extremely quickly. Resilience adapts and keeps functioning acceptably or recovers.
That's a good way to summarize it. They often work together.
The lecture also mentioned trusted recovery and QoS. Briefly, what are those?
Trusted recovery is about making sure the system is secure and reliable after it recovers from a failure. Does it fail secure, meaning it blocks access until verified? Or fail open, allowing access to maintain availability, maybe with risks? That's a critical decision.
I see. Security versus availability after a crash.
And quality of service, QoS, is mostly about network performance. Using techniques to prioritize important traffic, ensuring things like video calls or critical applications get the bandwidth they need, even when the network is busy, like during an incident response.
Okay, managing network resources under stress. Now, all these tech measures help, but sometimes a whole site goes down. That's where alternate processing sites come in, right? Backup locations.
Exactly. If your main office or data center is unusable due to a fire, flood, whatever, you need somewhere else to operate from. This is a huge part of DRP.
The lecture describes several types. Let's start with cold sites. What are they?
Cold sites are basically empty shells. You get a building, power, cooling, maybe some network cabling, but that's it. No servers, no computers, no data.
So cheap to maintain, I guess?
Relatively cheap, yes. But the big downside is time. It takes a long time, days, maybe weeks, to get equipment delivered, installed, configured, and restored data. It's the slowest recovery option.
Okay, cold is slow. What about hot sites? Sound like the opposite.
It is. A hot site is essentially a mirror image of your primary data center, ready to go almost immediately. It has all the hardware, software, and networking, and usually up-to-date data replicated in near real time.
Wow. Instant switchover, practically.
Pretty much. Recovery can be within minutes or hours, but as you can imagine, maintaining a fully operational duplicate site is very, very expensive. Highest protection, highest cost.
Makes sense. So there must be something in between.
Yep, the warm site. It's a compromise. It usually has the hardware, servers, network gear, all racked and ready.
But not the data.
Often not the most current data. You typically need to bring your recent backups, tapes, disks, whatever, to the warm site and restore them. So it takes longer than a hot site, maybe 12 hours, maybe a day or two, but much faster than a cold site.
Okay, a middle ground in cost and speed. What about mobile sites?
Think of large trailers or containers kitted out as data centers or office spaces. They can be driven to a location near you or pre-positioned. They can be set up as cold or warm sites, offering flexibility.
Interesting. And cloud computing? That seems like a big one now.
Huge. Using cloud providers like AWS or Azure for disaster recovery is very common. You can replicate your systems and data to the cloud, and if your primary site fails, quickly spin up virtual servers in the cloud to take over.
And presumably more cost-effective than a physical hot site.
Often, yes, because you typically pay for what you use. It offers rapid recovery, scalability, and can be cheaper than building and maintaining your own physical duplicate site.
Finally, the lecture mentioned mutual assistance agreements, MAAs. What's the deal there?
These are agreements between usually two companies to help each other out in a disaster. Like, if my data center floods, can I use yours for a week?
Sounds good in principle. Neighbors helping neighbors.
In principle, yes. In practice, they're tricky. Are they legally enforceable? What if the other company is also hit by the same disaster, like a regional power outage?
Ah, good point. If you're nearby, the same thing might affect both of you.
Exactly. And there are confidentiality concerns. Do you really want another company potentially accessing your systems or data, even in an emergency? So while they exist, they're often seen as less reliable than dedicated sites or cloud solutions.
Right. Relying on yourself seems safer. Wow, okay, we've covered a massive amount of ground here on BCP and DRP.
We really have, from that initial organizational review and building the right team.
Through the deep dive of the business impact analysis, figuring out what's critical, the risks, the potential quantitative and qualitative impacts.
Defining those crucial recovery objectives like RTO and RPO.
Understanding the difference between continuity planning, keeping going during, and disaster recovery, getting back to normal after.
Looking at the tech side with resilience, high availability, fault tolerance.
And finally, the strategies for alternate sites, from cold to hot, mobile, cloud, and those MAAs.
It really paints a picture of how comprehensive this needs to be.
Absolutely. It's clear that being prepared isn't just, a nice to have. It's fundamental. It takes proactive, continuous effort across the whole organization.
Couldn't agree more. And it's not a one-size-fits-all thing, is it? Every plan needs to be tailored to the specific organization, its risks, its resources, and tested, regularly tested.
Right, testing is key. So, a final thought perhaps for you, our listener, thinking about your own work, your own organization. What's a potential single point of failure you can identify?
Yeah, based on what we've discussed, what's one thing that, if it broke, would cause major problems?
And what's maybe just one small initial step you could take or suggest to build a bit more resilience around that, just applying these principles in your own context?
Food for thought. It's all about building that preparedness muscle.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into keeping businesses running no matter what.